Hey guys, what's going on? My name's Tyler McNabb, and this is my dad's Honda 450R. So, as most of you probably know, from the last video, we went ahead and we got the carburetor off this thing, and we're gonna do some jetting and stuff, and it turned out to be a lot longer video than I thought it was gonna be, so I split it into two. So here we have the second video. So today, what we're gonna work with is, luckily, I was talking about in my last video, I didn't know if stuff was gonna come in or not. Well, it's that same day and it did come in. So we have our regular carb rebuild kit, and it comes with all the jets and stuff, but I'm not gonna use those. We've got jets, and then the main thing I just need from here is the O-rings, and then we've also got our mid-body rebuild kit as well, so that'll be handy. And then we've got, of course, our nice clean carburetor. So that is going to be the main focus of today. And then also, I guess we've also got a new choke assembly that we're going to put in as well. And so I think that's all the major new parts. Well, also, I guess I did get a couple new air filters. That's nothing too exciting, but I figured I'd get us a couple fresh air filters while we do. I went ahead and I didn't film it, but I got the new air box in the 400, so that's ready to go as well. So hopefully after I'm done with this video, once we get the 450 dialed in, Dad and I'll do some ripping this weekend. But anyway, we'll get into the video. So main thing we're gonna focus on today is putting this carburetor back together. So I'm probably gonna do kind of, not really a step-by-step, but maybe just go through and show you some stuff for when you're putting this stuff back together, maybe some little helpful tips here and there. But yeah, just I'm gonna be putting this guy back together, and then from there we'll get her back on the quad and get it dialed, and then I may do some talking about jets and that kind of stuff too, just because jetting is not my favorite topic at all. I do not like jetting, but unfortunately, if you have carbureted things, you have to jet. So we'll get into that and all that fun stuff, but for now, first we're gonna go in, get this thing put back together, and so let's get right into it. Okay guys, well, got the carburetor here, got most of the parts sitting here, and so first thing I'm going to start with is this mid-body, because that's going to be the most tricky, because it's a very, well, I'll just show you the O-ring. It's very complex. As you can see, there's a lot of small little areas and stuff, so I'm going to start with it. It's going to be a little complex, and then plus, so it goes on top of here. This slides up into the main body of the carb, and then there's these little circular O-rings that go up in the corners as well, and they have to sit in here. Unfortunately, they don't sit down on this. They've got to sit up in there. So it's going to be a little bit tricky putting it together, but I think we should be able to figure it out. So I am going to use a little bit of grease to try to hold these in place, and very emphasis on a little, because the last thing you want to do is put a bunch of grease in your carburetor, because it will just, especially if you put it around places where like fuel is actually flowing through and you just put a bunch in there, well, now you're just going to clog up the carburetor because that grease isn't going to go anywhere. So basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in just a couple little spots, and basically just enough on the surface of the O-ring to make it just a tad sticky, so that way it stays in place. Not even close to enough to where you can even really see it. So yeah, just make sure if you do this, use a very, very little amount and avoid areas where the O-ring is actually going around somewhere where fuel is going through. Like here around the edges and stuff, not as big of a deal, but in these, when you get a lot closer to these fine passageways and stuff, probably just better stay away from those, because the last thing you want to do is clog this thing up with grease. So I'm going to go through, do that real quick, and then we will see if we can get this thing back together. So let's jump into it. Okay guys, well, got the carburetor all back together, so it is looking pretty good. It took me a good little bit to get it all back together because it's very tedious, and well, just trying to do a good job and make sure I don't like pinch one of those O-rings or something. Yeah, it was all kinds of fun. So I got it all together. Didn't really have too many issues. The only big thing that I have is, unfortunately, I can't use the flex jet because the threads inside my mid body are jacked up. So this fuel screw, it turns. When I first had it, it was like, when I first was taking it in and out, it was super stiff. I ran it in and out a couple times, now it's fine. But I tried to put the flex jet in and it will only screw in like half a turn. And I figured, oh, maybe it's screwed up. But then I went up to Rissler's, he had another one. And so we tried that other one in there too, and it did the exact same thing. So somehow the threads have gotten screwed up in the mid body. So it's not a huge deal. The fuel screw still works. It goes in and out. The only drawback is now I don't have like the flex jet to make it a lot easier to adjust the fuel screw. So that's unfortunate, but we'll be fine. World's still turning. So we got that back in there, and then we've got the new choke. Let me see here if I can. Oh yeah, that satisfying pop. So now the choke is good and it stays out on its own, so we're good there. And yeah, so overall I think it's all back together and good. Won't know if it's not leaking or anything until we get it back on the quad and start it. So I guess that's the only thing left to do, is to go ahead, throw it back on the quad, throw it back on here, and then I'm gonna try to put as minimal back on as possible to get it going. That way I don't have to, like if I do have to reject, because I probably will, then I'm not throwing stuff back on and off. So first thing I'll probably do is I'll put the carb on, get the air box on, and then I'll just try to start it from there. And yeah, we'll see what we can do from there. So let's get to it. Okay guys, well, I got it back together, but unfortunately there's an issue, of course. What do you expect? Got it all back together, but when I turn the fuel on, fuel comes dripping out of the corner of the bowl here, which is not great. So not too happy about it, but I mean, I guess this kind of crap happens when you're working on stuff. So I'm going to either, I don't know if the gasket got pinched or what it was, because I put a brand new gasket in there. So either it got pinched or I don't know, maybe it's just a bad gasket. So I'm gonna go ahead. It's not dripping crazy fast, so I think we're gonna go ahead and try to start it and just see how it runs and stuff beforehand, because I think if we get it running, maybe the fuel will stop dripping because it'll be using fuel, maybe, I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, for now, I'm gonna go ahead, try to get it running first, and then I'll have to take it back apart and put either a new gasket in or the old one or whatever. So let's try to get it started. That's not even. What the heck's going on? Okay guys, well, we got her started and running and all that fun stuff. So the old girl is starting to come back together. So kind of sum up what went down. So I went out to start, like I said before in the video, I was just going to go ahead and try to start the quad even though it was leaking. And so I took it out in the garage, went to start it. I think I included this clip in the video, but I went to start it, and then, well, first, my starter button wasn't working, which I found out that this starter button is bad because it'll only start if you push on the bottom, so the contacts are probably jacked up or something in it, so needed a new starter button. So that was the first thing that went wrong. And then second thing is, while I was looking at that, then fuel started pouring out of the overflow all over the floor. So I was like, crap, this thing is, something's jacked up. So I went ahead, shut off the fuel and brought it back in here, took the carb back off, and it turns out the bowl gasket got pinched, just barely, like on the very, very edge. You could see it. There was just a tiny nick in the gasket, and that was enough to let fuel come out of the front. And then also, I didn't replace the little O-ring in the fuel screw because originally I didn't think about it, because I was originally going to run the flex jet, but since I wasn't able to run it, I forgot to put in a new fuel O-ring, so it was leaking out of there too. So I put a new O-ring in that, got that fixed, and then also I took the what's it called, the float out of the carburetor, and I took the little tab and I bent it up on the float, so that way the little plunger, I think it's called, maybe, I'm not sure what the technical term is, that when the float goes up, that plunger that cuts off fuel flow into the carburetor bowl, I bent that up a tad so that it would go up sooner, and that fixed the issue of fuel overflowing. So I got all that fixed, and as you saw in the video, it's running now. So overall, it's running pretty good. I was having some issues with idle at first, but then I realized I just adjusted the throttle cable wrong, so the throttle cable was kind of holding. So I got that fixed, and then I played with the fuel screw a little bit, and then I took it up and down the road real quick just to get a quick ride, get some temperature in it, make sure the fan kicked on so that it was good and warm, and then I played with the fuel screw a little more, and I think I've got it pretty dialed. So overall, I won't know until we really just go out and ride it, but I think we're pretty close. The only thing I think I need to update or change is I think I'm gonna bump up the oh crap, what's it called? The leak jet. I'm gonna bump down the leak jet a tad, get a smaller leak jet, which actually takes more fuel from the accelerator pump into the engine. So the leak jet is kind of opposite of a normal jet. So what the leak jet is it's the jet that lets fuel, like in your accelerator pump, it shoots a stream of fuel into your engine. And when it does that, the leak jet lets a certain amount of fuel come back into the bowl instead of going to the engine. So that leak jet, when you have a bigger one, more fuel comes back to the bowl, less goes to the engine. When you have a smaller leak jet, less comes back to the bowl, more goes to the engine. You know, that's how it is. So I think I need to go a little bit smaller on the leak jet to let more fuel go into the engine, because I've got a slight bog when you just immediately just hit it hard, just a nice quick hit the throttle. If you roll into it, it's fine. And then up top, I kind of got on it a couple times, and up top seemed to be okay. So we won't really know until I really get out and ride it, but I think I do need to play with the leak jet just a tad. And then, like I said, I got the fuel screw dialed. So if you don't know how the fuel screw works or anything like that, if you're going to be jetting the carburetor, before you change any jets at all, you need to play with the fuel screw. And by play, I mean adjust the fuel screw. And so what you'll want to do with the fuel screw, and if you don't know what I'm talking about with fuel screw, so this guy right there, that black little screw coming out of the carburetor that has a 2 on it, that is the fuel screw. So this one has an aftermarket fuel screw, so that's what it looks like. But most carburetors, that's about where they are. And what you'll want to do is, what that fuel screw should do is, when you turn that all the way in, it should almost kill your quad, and it'll idle super low, and then you start turning it out, and anywhere between a half a turn out to 2.5 turns out is where you want to be on that fuel screw. And basically what you're looking for when you turn it out, the idle's going to climb, and there's a crispness to the throttle that you'll hear. So like the throttle note will become very crisp, and it'll just sound really good. And then as you continue to turn it out, it'll stay the same RPM, but the exhaust note will get kind of dull / flat. So that's the kind of what I go by. I got that kind of information from Jet Lab carburetors. So they're big into the FCR carburetors and all that. So that's where I got that information from. I kind of live by it. I'll see if I can link. He did a Facebook post with all this information. I'll see if I can link that down below for you guys, just because it's a very informative post. And especially if you're tuning carburetors, the first thing you want to do is get your fuel screw dialed in first, and then play with jets. So yep, that's pretty much it for this video. So I just talked there for, it looks like 6 minutes or so on this, so I'll try to wrap it up here. But yeah, this is pretty much going to be it for this video, wrapping it up for part 2 of rebuilding the carburetor. Like I said, I think it's running. I don't believe I'm leaking any fuel at this point. So next video will probably be me and Dad getting some ride time in, yeah, testing this thing out and trying to get it good and dialed in. So I'm not gonna record putting the plastics back on stuff. That's not super interesting. So I'm just gonna go ahead, exit out this video here. So I want to thank you guys for coming and watching. Hope you enjoyed this little 2 video series on rebuilding the carburetor. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.